How has the first 3 weeks of the season impacted our perspective of the NFC landscape? We're delivering our NFC Power Rankings today in the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Scouting with the Draft Dudes, your daily podcast for NFL and college football scouting. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's better than this? It's guys being dudes here on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast. We're the Draft Dudes. I'm Joe Marino from Locked On Bills. He's Kyle Krabs from Locked On Dolphins. And we are your NFL experts here with you daily to talk team building across the league on the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast with the Draft Dudes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'd like to thank you for making Locked On NFL Scouting your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, we appreciate y'all being here very, very much.
Joe, NFC Power Rankings, a little less chaotic for me than the AFC Power Rankings. Still some pretty heavy swings in the middle section, but and a new first team for me. It's my tease. I know they like on the network. They say, "Hey, tease your content.
Yeah,
tease everybody what's coming during the show." There's my tease. You got a new number one team.
I have a new last place team.
I also have a new last place team.
Let's shake up at the top and the bottom, eh?
Yeah, Jocelyn for what a fascinating game we will have between the last place team in each conference. At least
if I'm not mistaken, there's 4 winless teams in the NFL, and they all play this weekend.
No, like each other.
Yeah,
is that true? It's Chicago and Denver, and
Chicago and Denver, and then you have Minnesota
and Carolina.
And Carolina. Is that really true?
Is it?
Come on. I can't be bringing this stuff up on the cuff and not have it handy, but I'm pretty sure.
You're the one who said it.
I know, but I'm pretty sure it's true. Please hold. Please hold.
So
Minnesota and Carolina play. That's exactly right. And Denver and Chicago. Yes, it's true.
Wow.
Yeah.
This reminds me of 2019 when the Commanders and Dolphins played in the Tank Bowl in Week 5. And Washington won on a failed 2-point conversion by Miami at the end of regulation when Ryan Fitzpatrick brought him back from the brink. And they left Fitz in from there. That was a Rosen start, I believe.
Rosen. Wow. Okay.
So now, what happens first? We have no undefeated teams, or we have no winless teams?
No undefeated teams.
You think so?
Yeah.
But we're going to be guaranteed down to 2 no winless teams by the end of this week. I think Philly plays cupcakes for a couple weeks, and
Philly and Miami play pretty soon.
Well, they play Week 7. San Francisco's got Arizona this week, so they should be in the clear. Philadelphia has the Jets. No, I lied. They have the Commanders at home.
Commanders beat them last year.
They did, but I feel good about Philly's chances. So
me too.
You like Miami obviously plays Buffalo. That's as hard of a draw as you're going to get for an undefeated team in this week's schedule for sure by miles. So you may well end up with 2-2, and then the race is on.
All right, want to stack these up?
Let's do it.
You have a new number one, Kyle. Who is it?
It's the San Francisco 49ers, so the new number one team for me in the NFC conference. It was the Dallas Cowboys. We talked about the game on Monday, losing to the Arizona Cardinals. It's very ugly. I understand you had some injuries along the offensive line. Zach Martin didn't play. Teron Smith, I believe, was the other one who didn't play. Trayvon Diggs goes down at the end of the week with a season-ending injury, so there's an emotional element to the game. I get it. You can't lose to Arizona. I'm sorry. You can't. So
need more injuries than that to lose to Arizona.
Right.
I got San Francisco at number 1. They stay there, and then it's Philly at 2, right? There's no other option.
I also moved the Philadelphia Eagles up to the number 2 spot. Yes.
The last 2 weeks with Philly, with them really finding that run game, the displacement they're getting with this offensive line, and the success that DeAndre Swift's having running behind it, it's really sparked them. Obviously, defensively, they're strong. their passing game, getting A.J. Brown going this week. That was a pretty good idea.
Yep.
I felt like they probably played their most complete game this week out of the first three. The game that they just played against Tampa compared to what Minnesota was pretty tight. And then week one, they kind of had to scratch and claw to get by New England.
Yeah. And you feel like that about a third of the way through each of those games is really where they kind of said, oh, okay, like we're settling in.
Yeah.
And it took over from there, and they steadily pulled away against Tampa for a 14-point win on Monday Night Football. Was what, 25 scoregami, I believe. 25-11, I believe, was a scoregami.
Which is, what does that mean? The only time it's ever happened?
Yeah, first time that final score has happened.
Wow. I like that.
So I have Dallas at 3.
Yeah, still have them at 3. I think you can look at that game as a one-off for sure. But I think it is important for them to bounce back, right? Like, now there's a little bit of doubt in your operation.
Mm-hmm.
How do you bounce back? And next up for them is the Patriots. So you get Patriots at 49ers at Chargers before their bye.
Ooh. I hope they're who we thought they were.
We'll find out over these next 3.
Because if they're not, that can get really ugly.
Yeah, it's a tough stretch, especially with at 49ers at Chargers.
2 road games before the bye.
And so we have this is the Zeke Elliott revenge game coming up. And
yes,
Zeke was pretty involved in that Jets game plan.
Can I be honest with you? I watched the week prior. I don't think he's got anything left in the tank.
Well, he's going to be a spirited effort against his former team that just gave up.
Of course.
I mean, what did they gave up 222 rushing yards to Arizona, Kyle. To Arizona.
Yeah. Zach Martin ain't going to help you there.
People want to buy Josh Dobbs jerseys, Kyle.
Josh Dobbs can't even buy Josh Dobbs jersey.
Well, now he can. Imagine.
Is there a better embodiment of the Arizona Cardinals?
Incredible. It's incredible. We'll get to Arizona, but they're not last.
Right.
All right, so this is where it gets interesting, right? It's still this top 3 of the top 3. Maybe you move them around a little bit, but 4 and 5 is where it gets interesting.
I have 2 new teams this week.
So do I.
That were not there last week, but they were the same 2 teams that were there in week 2. I have Green Bay at 4, and I have Detroit at 5.
Oh, man. Okay. I don't have those teams. 4 for me is Seattle, and 5 is Detroit.
You're not at all impressed by Green Bay without every meaningful player they have on the roster sneaking out a win against the Saints?
I am impressed by that.
But not as impressed as I am
with
what Detroit's done the last 2 weeks.
I don't know. Those 3 teams are very similar to me.
I agree, which is why I have Seattle 6, not to spoil this.
Right, okay, so that's why I have Green Bay at 6. I mean, I think Detroit has, I don't know. I think Seattle's the more proven team, right? When you kind of go back over the last year into this season. And, they beat Detroit. So that means something for me. Obviously they beat Carolina, which is, the game you expected them to win. Obviously what they showed in week one can be a liar, but I think them beating Detroit and kind of what I thought of that team going in is what gives them the 4 spot for me.
Okay. You've just talked. I'm going to move Seattle up to 5. For the sake of congruency and being fair, you make a good point about the head-to-head. That I was really focused in where I had them ranked the previous week relative to how they looked this past week. But a head-to-head there for Detroit. I'll move Seattle up to 5. I'll play ball there. That's fine. But I still have Green Bay in front because at 2-1, they have really been going through the ringer to start the season. And to be 2-1 and to have a defense that I think is still performing at a pretty high level. They've given up 62 points through the first 3 weeks. They've still managed to find a way to score 80 points in the first 3 weeks without Aaron Jones, without Christian Watson, without Bakhtiari, without Ogden. Like, it means something to me. So I think if that team continues to get healthy, and look, Detroit and Green Bay play tomorrow night. So it'll be a great game.
Let's go. A Thursday night game I'm excited for.
I care about, right. That'll be one that will be a really fun game. Poor Detroit, 2 Thursday nights in the first.
Well, at least one of them is week 1. If you want to play Thursday night, that's a great time to do it.
Right.
All right, so my top 5, 49ers, Eagles, Cowboys, Seahawks, Lions. Kyle?
49ers, Eagles, Cowboys, Packers, Seahawks is my top 5.
All right. We got more to get to here in just a moment. But first, our partners at eBay Motors have teamed up with Locked On Fantasy Football host Vinny Iyer to bring you some of the best fantasy picks each week all season long. So whether you're prepping for a daily draft or scouting the waiver wire, every week we're going to provide you with players that are guaranteed to fit on your roster. So let's see who Vinny has picked out for us on this week's eBay's Guaranteed Fit Fantasy Picks of the Week. Jaguars wide receiver Calvin Ridley has the classic rebound and revenge opportunity in London in the Week 4 Sunday matchup against his former team, the Falcons. Ridley has been very quiet with Jacksonville's passing game slumping the past 2 weeks, but he will return to his more stellar Week 1 debut form for his new team. The Jaguars will do a better job of scheming him open across the pond and making his massive target volume from Trevor Lawrence count big time once again. Vinny Iyer from Locked On Fantasy Football is going to help you win your fantasy championship. And eBay Motors knows a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you can make sure your ride stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof rack bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber and not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply.
So we've spoiled 6. I have Detroit. You have Green Bay.
I've got Green Bay.
The next 2 spots for me are teams that lost and populated top 5 spots last week. I have the New Orleans Saints at 7. Obviously, the Derek Carr injury is a bummer. They do have one of the better backup quarterback situations in the league with Jameis Winston.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think the expectations should change too much for them. And then I have the Atlanta Falcons at 8.
Same.
Like
Same
chalk.
deal.
Same deal.
For Atlanta, close wins over Carolina and Green Bay, then losing to Detroit. At Jacksonville over in London is their next game. So we'll see. And then, like, you look at the Houston game, might be a little tougher, right, than anticipated. So I'm interested to kind of see how this unfolds for Atlanta, how they bounce back from a loss, a decisive loss by Detroit beating them. So they're on notice a little bit. And as for the Saints, I think it's interesting. Like, they're 2-1, but I don't know that Derek Carr's been playing great, right? And Jameis Winston comes into this operation as a more familiar guy, right? Within the scheme, within the talent around him. And so, I mean, you didn't sign Derek Carr to what you signed him for him not to be better than Jameis Winston. But the point that I'm trying to make here is I'm not so sure I'm that concerned about it.
That's fair. I generally agree. I think if there was a backup quarterback situation, it's them and Carolina, right? Are the teams that you look at their starter versus who their backup is and the experience that player has. And you feel pretty comfortable with those players being able to step in. And you saw case in point, the production that Carolina was able to have in the passing game with Andy Dalton throwing the ball all over the yard in week 3, in spite of how many self-inflicted. I guess we'll get to Carolina.
Yeah, we'll get to Carolina.
We'll get to Carolina.
So we have the Rams. Same. Okay.
I have the Rams at 9. Quality, I guess quality, air quotes, loss on the road. Monday Night Football.
Competing more than I thought. I mean, they continue to, right? Like, Aaron Donald obviously made an impact in that game. You know, I think since he kind of woke up at home as the game moved along. But I mean, the Rams are a tough out for sure. I'm not sure they're a great team, but they're a tough out.
Yeah, they're a team. Look at the defensive effort that was required from Cincinnati. Now, offensive line for the Rams look rough.
Yeah,
in this game, but that was Hendrickson and company taking over. And DJ Reader gets in on the sack party. Like, it's when you know you're having a good day rushing the passer, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's the big question for the Rams, but I don't think every team has the overall front 7 talent that the Bengals do, and I don't think every team has Lou Anarumo to smell blood in the water and go out and take advantage of it the way that Cincinnati, I think, did down the stretch in that game. And the Rams were in position to win the game late in the game.
Yep.
So, yeah, tough out. Would hate to have them on the schedule and assume because they got a bunch of young kids at this stage of the game that they're going to be a team that's going to lay down for you because they're not.
I actually have the Rams at 10.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure your 10 team is going to be my 9 team.
Only one way to find out, Joe Marino.
At 9, I have Tampa Bay.
I have Tampa Bay at 10.
Okay, so we just flipped those two teams around. Obviously, Tampa Bay, they got outmatched against Philly. And congrats, you beat Minnesota. You beat Chicago in weeks 1 and 2. But I think you were a little bit more of the team I kind of feared you would be against Philly. Now, they have the Saints this week, and then it's bye week. So kind of interested in early season bye. How do they come out of that? What are their adjustments? What do they want to be moving forward? So it'd be nice for them to get a division road game or division road win against their former quarterback this week. But I think that's in a lot of ways a coin flip game, in my opinion.
I don't have any level of confidence that the team that had 174 yards offense against Philly is going to move the ball against Saints defense.
They didn't even have 250 yards against Minnesota in week 1.
Right. Like I for as good as the defense can be, I still think the offense is who we thought it was. And against New Orleans, I just do not like the matchup.
Well, look at these.
We're not picking games this week, so
we're not picking games yet.
That doesn't matter. But it's I hear the messaging that you're saying, but I look at it and I'm like, ooh, like this might get bumpy, and that's why I have them below the Rams.
Yeah, I get it. I'm concerned about both teams moving forward. I guess Tampa Bay, I think, is a more talented team than the Rams, so I give them some credit for that. But I mean, if the Rams get Cooper Kupp back, I mean, hopefully that's pretty soon for them, and they can really get it going. I mean, obviously Puka Nacua off to a great start, but like
Tutu Atwell.
I mean, Van Jefferson made his first play of the year last week. I mean, this guy's. I'm still waiting for Van Jefferson to like do something for this team. He's been getting opportunities.
Who has the breakout first? Mike Davis at running back or Van Jefferson at wide receiver?
Dude, good question. Good question. I mean, if it wasn't going to happen right now for Van Jefferson, that he's healthy without Kupp, he's out there.
We liked Van coming out of Florida.
Maybe some of those injuries he's had before this has kind of taken away something from him. Kind of an older prospect coming through, but like, man, come on, dude. Everybody steps into the Rams offense and finds production except for that guy. And he was drafted by him.
Right. Or Allen Robinson.
Guy was cooked. He made a couple catches.
He did appear on Monday Night Football.
He has a pulse. Pulse. All right, so this chunk for me, Packers, Falcons, Saints, Bucks, Rams.
I have Lions, Saints, Falcons, Rams, Bucks.
All right. The bottom 6 of the NFC is coming up here in just a moment. But first, need to tell you about Jase Medical. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. And that's why Jase Medical offers the Jase case. The Jase case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jase Medical makes sure that you have the medication in hand. Folks, Jase Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. So don't get caught unprepared. Get $20 off these life-saving antibiotics today from Jase Medical by using our promo code LOCKEDON at checkout on jasemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com.
What a ride this is going to be.
This is a big yikes bucket to me.
I have the Commanders at 11. I understand they got whooped by the Mafia on Sunday. I understand. But who do you feel better about that you'd put in front of them? Because the Giants got whooped on Thursday night. The Vikings are winless. The Cardinals. Are you going to move them up from last place and put them 11 because Washington got blasted week 3? Carolina? Chicago? Washington's got the best resume at this point.
Washington has
a bad offensive line.
No, of these bottom 6 teams. Wait a minute. Washington has the same amount of wins as the other 5 teams in the bottom here combined.
That's correct.
I think that's probably the most compelling reason to put them at 11.
How do you not put them at 11?
Right. They showed some resilience in those first 2 games. And one thing that I'll say about their shellacking that they took to the Bills, it was a 2-score game with 11 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It was 16-0, and then like all hell broke loose for Washington. Yeah. The Bills had like 4 different offensive sequences where they were threatening to score, where they just some self-inflicted wounds, drops, penalties took them out of range. And they kind of missed some opportunities, in my opinion, to really pour it on in terms of the scoring. So, no, couldn't get to 70. Only got to 37, but only had 16 with 11 minutes left in the game. So, yeah, we didn't quite have that same output. But, yeah, I mean, I think the score was reflective of the mismatch, but the Bills let them hang around for a while.
So do you have them 11?
Yeah, I got them 11.
Okay. I've been sitting here waiting the whole time for you to tell me you end up having somebody else. I'm like, oh, Lord.
No, and I think that's the right mindset with it is like, okay, well, who?
Now from here.
But listen, okay, one more thing on Washington.
Yes.
I like what EB's doing, but he's got to help his young quarterback a little bit more. Like, they're asking him to read it and rip it, dude. Like, deep drops, double moves, like processing deep into the snap. It's like, this guy coming from Phil Longo, man.
Fail forward.
Brother, talk about putting the guy into the weeds.
No. All we were told all offseason and training camp was how great Sam Howell is, and we can't believe this guy fell to the 5th round, and we really feel like he's our guy moving forward. If that's the case, then don't put training wheels on your offense. Ask him to read it and rip it.
They don't have him. They don't have him at all on him.
Yeah.
They're asking him to be a dude. It's incredible. Yeah. It's incredible. All right, so
at 12, what team can you make the most excuses for? Because that's the team that goes in the next spot.
I don't know. Right now I have the Giants, but you could probably talk me into it being the Vikings. I don't know.
I have Giants and then Vikings.
Okay, same.
If that makes you feel better.
And I still go back to the Giants beating the Vikings, even though it's completely unfair. Those are 2 very different teams at the time. But, like, I don't know. The Giants won a game. The Vikings haven't. The Vikings have had a much more difficult path, probably.
You see, the Vikings are like the unluckiest team in the league at this point.
After being the luckiest team in the history of the NFL, figure this
it wasn't luck, Joe. It was good culture. It wasn't luck.
I'm not diminishing wins. Like, congrats on everything, but sustainability, not great.
They've had the most or the least EPA added in like swing plays, like turnovers and like block kicks and drops, all that. They are by a decent margin like the least lucky team through the first 3 weeks.
Look at Minnesota's ride the next 4 weeks at Carolina.
Okay.
Kansas City.
Okay.
At Chicago.
Okay.
San Francisco.
Oh boy. Okay. You probably get a couple in there.
They should beat Carolina and Chicago, right?
You should go 2-2.
But those are the road. They got to go to the road games. I'm not okay, no problem. But like,
they'll go 2-2.
They should.
They'll go 2-2. So that'll put them at 2-5.
Assuming losses to Kansas City and San Francisco, yes.
Yeah. Hey, it's any given Sunday, right? We'll see what happens.
Play them all, right? See what happens.
I think there's a clear talent divide between those 2 teams. So you look at Washington and their resume and say, okay, they kind of stand alone in the bottom 6.
Mm-hmm.
Then you look at the talent available / the talent that could be available if you're healthy for New York and Minnesota, and you say, okay, they're probably a separation sub-tier within the tier. And now you get to Arizona, Carolina, and Chicago as the last 3. I have them in that order.
I do as well, but I'm not putting Arizona in the same bucket as Carolina and Chicago. Arizona's been competitive 3 weeks in a row and won a game.
Mm-hmm.
Have you felt like Carolina and Chicago were competitive this year?
No.
Even in the close game that Carolina played at Atlanta, come on now. They look like clowns out there. So I think Arizona, despite having less talent than both teams, I mean, they are much more competitive in my mind.
they're playing an inspired credit to all of the goofing that we've had with Jonathan
Right.
Gannon, right? And all the tank season and all they stayed on schedule because they gave away the leads late in the game. Like all of that, all the jokes aside, they're playing pretty inspired ball. They got a bunch of they are the new team of Island of Misfits toys that's playing with something to prove. And they're taking advantage of that opportunity right now.
Commanders, Giants, Cowboys. That's who they've played. They beat the Cowboys.
4 point. If it wasn't for a defensive touchdown, right, they would have beat the Commanders.
Yeah.
You blew a 20-point lead. Daniel Jones picked up the
historic second half.
Yeah, I was trying to think of what Mario, like the star.
Yeah, it's a good way.
You know, when he did
they got that.
Daniel Jones got that in the second half of that game. They were down 20
Correct,
points.
Kyle. I want to tell you what, that was about to be one of the greatest like references, analogies of all time. But you had to remember what that was called. I don't know what it's called, but if you did, if that would have hit, that would have been a moment. I know what you're talking about. That you get that thing, you're going, man. You're going. Everything's getting out of your way. Is it
what's the stall and no. The superstar, is that correct?
Is it? I don't know. Mario.
Yeah, superstar. If generally appears a 5-pointed star with beady eyes. If a color gets the star, they will become invincible.
Well,
that's what happened to Daniel Jones. Yeah, the Starman. I digress. Daniel Jones got really hot. Could do no wrong.
There's the Joe Marino version of it. He got hot. Got
hot. And so I would agree with you from a resume standpoint, Arizona, in the same way that Washington is separate off of resume year to date from New York and Minnesota. I think Arizona resume year to date is separate from Carolina and Chicago.
Yeah, and I think Carolina's ahead of Chicago. Carolina's played at least 2 close games. Chicago hadn't played a close game in a long time. It's you have to go back. Didn't we do this the other day?
Yeah,
when was their last non-2-score loss?
Week 13 or something like that was their last single-digit loss or single-score loss.
So week 15 last year, 25-20 against Philly. But then the 2 before that, 31-10 to the Jets. Last year's Jets with whatever the heck was going on there. In Green Bay, 28-19. 3-point loss to Atlanta before that. I mean, this is insane. They're just getting walloped every week. It's not just Justin Fields. Like, could we acknowledge that the offense of Luke Getsy and Justin Fields not good? Neither is Matt Eberflus's defense.
Because
they've invested there.
They don't have the horses up front.
Well,
surprise!
You paid the 2 linebackers, you drafted the DBs, and you thought to yourself, you just make it work with the D line, the most important part of your defense. Couple of toolsy rookies.
They drafted a couple day 2.
Come on. Come on, man. It's not a good operation right now.
Yeah, not to pour gasoline on the fire.
No,
by any means. We have a developing story that we need to talk about, Joe.
Okay.
And it's Miles Sanders and his performance this season. He's threatening the Peyton Barber line.
All I care about is him getting 50 catches.
He's got 12 through 3 games.
Okay, so he's on pace for like over 60.
Yeah, you're in good shape right now. All I know is he's touched the ball 53 times and he's averaging less than 4 yards a touch.
Oh, bother. We will not let you get away with that on this podcast. That's
the Peyton Barber line is in trouble.
Yeah, when you get high volume.
Unfamiliar, if you're uninitiated with the Peyton Barber line. Peyton Barber continued like a 3-year stretch in Tampa Bay where he was like the guy in the backfield, including 2018. He started all 16 games. He had 234 carries. That year, he finished with 254 touches and did not manage to surpass 1,000 yards from scrimmage, which is average 3.8 yards per touch, not carry, per touch. And that was a year in which he caught 20 passes for 92 yards. So it became coined the Peyton Barber line. If you have over 250 touches and you fail to surpass 1,000 yards or are under 4.0 yards per touch, that's the Peyton Barber line, just like the Mendoza line in baseball when you're batting below 200. So Miles Sanders is on Peyton Barber watch.
It's early. A lot of ball game left.
It is early.
You'd hate to see
but I don't look at
this
this Carolina offensive line.
No, it's all banged up,
Joe,
man.
If only somebody did a research project on teams leaving in free agency and signing big money contracts at the running back position to go to a new team and the success rate of those contracts.
Somebody should have done that.
Damn it. I really wish somebody went over all that on a show.
And it's such an interesting thing because, like, they have their center and their two tackles, right?
How's Dalvin Cook? Look.
Okay, that's my ball to spike.
Right, but it's the same project. It's the next talking point on the same project.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right about that. And
these big money running back contracts this year with new teams
your boys dodged the bullet, Kyle. And I was hoping they'd sign Dalvin Cook, sitting there rooting for it. Take away the carries from Mostert and Achane or whatever his name is now.
Achane, come on.
Achane. I corrected myself within 1 second, so pronunciation police put the cuffs away.
Who gets a win first here?
Between who and who?
Carolina playing the winless Vikings and the Bears playing the winless Broncos.
Okay, Andy Dalton's probably going to play quarterback this week for the Panthers.
The same Andy Dalton with more passing yards through one game that Bryce Young had through two?
So they have Minnesota. Chicago has Denver.
Brian Flores can blitz the bejesus out of Carolina.
You mean, yeah, he's on Minnesota. I don't know. Maybe neither one of them.
Carolina goes Minnesota, at Detroit, at Miami next three.
Doesn't look good. They got to beat Minnesota.
Chicago is home against Denver, at Washington, and then Minnesota.
And then the Raiders, right?
And then the Raiders at home.
I mean, I want to say Chicago because their path is easier, but they haven't been competitive in a very long time in a football game.
25 first downs in the last two games combined.
It's not good enough. You need to have like 20 first downs. Should be like a normal amount for one game.
You were down 41 points and managed to scratch out 87 passing yards against the Chiefs.
Right. We talked about that. Was it on the Monday show? It's like, where was the garbage stats?
I'm just re-looking at the numbers.
Where were the garbage stats? Like, everybody gets garbage stats. Couldn't hit a few passes trying to get some points late in the game.
Where's that DJ Moore perimeter screen from the preseason? Let's let him make it happen.
Yeah, call that play, right?
All right. We're out of here. We don't want to go down. The Commanders is at Washington on a Thursday in week 5, too.
Glorious. Glorious. Enjoy this week's Thursday Night Football, right?
Right. Enjoy it while it lasts, because then we're back on our regularly scheduled programming shortly thereafter. And our regularly scheduled programming means we are back tomorrow to pick all the games for week 4 of the 2023 NFL schedule. We are looking forward to that. We hope you are looking forward to it as well. Find us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. I'm Kyle Krabs. He is Joe Marino, and we are out of here. Peace.